fine. All right, so moving on, we're gonna go now to our trope, which Mark will read to us and tell us what our trope for the day is.
I will? No, I'm just kidding. I'm prepared. Um, yeah, so this week I didn't know which one to pick for a while actually, because last week we did like the trope of all tropes, which is the red barrels. And then this week I figured I would try to tie it into our horror games topic, and I settled on the lock and key puzzle, which I don't know. I could read from tvtropes.org like we did last week, but honestly, it has a lot of hyperlinks to a bunch of other tropes that we would have to go down that rabbit hole. But it's a familiar enough trope. Basically, we see it in horror games all the time, especially Resident Evil was probably the first offender, and then Silent Hill's done it to a lesser extent. But Eternal Darkness, I think Clock Tower, if I remember correctly, Fatal Frame probably did it as well. The lock and key puzzle is where the towns that you exist in inexplicably like rely on puzzles as part of their like city planning.
Yeah,
like a door that won't open unless you have both halves of like some ancient crest, or like a key that you need to unlock a door, but you have this other key that unlocks a different door, and behind that door you'll find half the crest, and then another key, and then with that key, eventually you find the key you need. It's just
yeah,
we've made fun of it before on a website that we write for, Tony, as you remember.
yeah. No, I remember that very well.
It's
Uh,
just such a weird, like, I don't know when it began with horror games specifically. I guess Resident Evil, like I said, because there weren't too many horror games before them at all
Well,
besides
like
ones.
Doom did it a lot. You had to go find the red key, the blue key, the yellow key.
yeah, no, I mean,
So,
it's even beyond horror too. I mean, so many games have done it, but I think with horror, it's absolutely because when you look at action adventure games and RPGs and all that, you're opening up this door to get to a secret area that's heavily guarded. And horror games is like you're in a mansion and every door it requires these weird tricks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you're just thinking, who the fuck is the landlord to this place? I mean, if I was him, I'd just walk outside and fall asleep in the dirt and just go, this is better. This is a better option at this point.
Yeah, I just don't. It's almost like maybe less now with the way that these hide and seek games like Amnesia and Soma are becoming more popular. But back in like the Resident Evil third person horror days, which I mean still exist anyways, but in that sort of subgenre of the horror gaming, it's almost like there's like the survival aspect to the horror, and then there's the puzzle aspect, and like because a lot of those games the gunplay won't be very good, and especially in like the early Silent Hills and Resident Evil, the the voice acting was pretty cheesy a lot of the time, and it failed in a lot of regards. But the two things they always tried to get right were like the survival of the importance of like surviving and the emphasis on that, and and for some fucking inexplicable reason, a bunch of puzzles around your house or town. It's just so funny to me.
I know. That, I always questioned that when I was a kid, too, because I was. Cause it's like you said, it's like, why does this one door require one certain key? And then you open it up, you're like, oh, now this door
Yeah,
requires a certain key as well. I was just like, oh, you had to have the zombie apocalypse at the most inconvenient fucking place to have it at.
yeah, yeah,
Well, I mean, but of course, it's a video game. It's what draws you in because the puzzles were fun. I always enjoy puzzles. I have a blast, going through them, especially when you're trying to run away from something at the same time too, and you're trying to figure out what this puzzle is. Soma did that very well, and it made sense with Soma as well because you're playing a character that is in a completely foreign land, so he just doesn't understand what's going on. So it makes sense for him to have to ask questions and search around for things, even when he does have help. So
yeah.
that's one thing I did like about Soma.
Have you actually on the subject, Cole? I've played a little bit of Shattered Memories, and I know it's
hmm.
combat free, which is way different than the rest of the series, and I think that's really cool. But with it being combat free, they must have a bunch of puzzles in it, then, right? And like these lock and key sort of things. Have you seen any of that?
Yeah, like I was just gonna mention that. In a way, it's kind of clever because it's kind of so the I don't want. I'm trying to figure out how to say this without spoiling the game, but they kind of do a similar psychoanalysis thing that
Oh yeah,
Until Dawn does.
yeah. I saw a little
And
bit of that. It like asks you if you've ever cheated on somebody, and it's really like
hmm
personal. It's weird.
yeah, yeah. And then like one of the questions was like, do you enjoy a drink to loosen up? Do you like enjoy being around people or something like that? And so then that kind of plays into the puzzles. And so in that respect, it works for me because they're creating this game with its, mechanics based on who you are, which is
Mm.
very interesting because within the first hour we're playing, we get to this area. It's like a open playground area, and there's a locked door, and like the character's like, oh, I gotta find the key. So obviously we know we need to find a key, but we look forever and we can't find a key, and then we find empty beer cans, and one of them's rattling around, and we're like, why is this rattling around? And with the Wiimote, you have to actually pick it up and kind of rotate it in the air like you do in a lot of the newer games, like the
I like
order
the
you
launch
had you
side.
do and stuff like that, or you look on the back of pages and things like that.
Uh,
And you tip it upside down and a key falls out. And while I thought it was clever that they tied in the whole like having a drink to relax thing, I thought it was really silly that why is there a key in an empty beer can?
yeah.
And it was about 15 feet from the door that's locked. I was
That's
like,
even worse.
yeah, like it wasn't down a hallway in another room where there's actually more beers, like on the back of a truck or something.
It's like a hide a key for that environment, rather than putting it inside a fake rock because that rock makes sense in a lawn. They put it
Uh-huh.
inside an empty can because that empty can makes sense in that kitchen or wherever you were.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it added an hour of us walking around trying to figure out what to do.
Man, yeah, I don't like it when my survival horror with zombies and monsters doesn't have realism in it. You know,
No, we said
that's a good,
there.
that's a pretty good trope though. I'm liking the ending segments of this with the tropes because what I like about it is it makes me rethink all the games I used to play
Yeah.
and how
Mhm.
much fun I had with
Listen,
them.
like the one I remember the most, I don't remember exactly, but I think it was Resident Evil 1, and you're in like a library room, and there's a like an armor, like a old knight armor thing, and
Are
you
you
had
talking about the
this.
gas chamber?
It's really early in the game,
Ah, it's yeah,
is all
that's
I remember.
because I was thinking the same exact. Well, I was thinking Resident Evil 1 as well, but there's like a gas chamber one where you have to move things right, and if you don't, like the gas will come up and kill
Oh
you.
yeah, yeah, I remember that one too.
So wow, we're on the same wavelength. Mark, get with us here. It's gonna be like women when they're at the home. We just gotta sync together, you know.
But like what like I guess is it the question I would ask you guys is does that take you too far away from reality to be scared? Because every other game can do that and get away with it, like the Zelda games, and all the kind of other dungeon crawlers and stuff. Like they're allowed to have these puzzles that kind of add to the gameplay and you look forward to them. But then in horror games, does it take you too much out of the I don't know, the horror and the story and the
I
grasp
think
of
it.
reality?
I think it works really well in Silent Hill because Silent Hill is already like just slightly
Twist.
askew from reality.
Yeah,
Like
it's all twisted.
yeah, it
Mm.
it already like Resident Evil to me feels like it's trying to give me a real world with like an unbelievable scenario. Silent Hill always feels like a really bad dream. So I
Mm-hmm.
think I think in that series it works fine.
Yeah,
Mm.
because I mean, in that world, it's not supposed to make sense.
Yeah, and often it
Mm.
does. It certainly doesn't.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. Silent Hill. Yeah, sometimes it's just you're like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah.
Well, that was the other question I was going to ask you is kind of there's games like Silent Hill where reality is so twisted and bent that if it were real, it would kind of terrify you. But because video games can bend the rules so much and they do so often, like, is it possible that in today's maybe technology to create a game that when a wall, melts or something like that, that you're actually scared by that happening in the game? Does that
Well,
make sense?
I mean, VR is gonna gonna make a whole bunch of shit really scary for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I already saw a couple of things about that. Watching people play on the VR is actually pretty funny, especially watching the reaction outside of it. You know, when something scary happens and you can see their body do a full turn. You know, even though you don't really necessarily have to do that, it just makes me laugh. And I think I don't know. I'm not too sure on VR yet. I think it's gonna do well for horror, but I don't know
Yeah, I
about.
think it's a perfect fit for horror. It might put I was thinking, how certain like new technology will come along and make past technology obsolete. It'll almost it kind of feels to me like it's gonna put haunted houses out of business.
Ooh, yeah, I didn't think about that. It's
Like if you're a haunted house businessman and you thrive in months of September and October, you're in trouble when Oculus Rift and Morpheus and all these others come out because people
Mm.
won't have to leave. It's the same way like sporting events aren't as popular now because people have these home theater systems that are better than watching the game
Yeah.
from hundreds of rows back. And it's
Mm-hmm.
gonna
what? You don't like to watch ants? What the hell,
what?
dude?
Wait, have you guys ever seen the movie Brain Scan?
I don't think so.
It's
Oh, is that the
it's a
one?
great.
Is that the one where the dude's head blows up in the middle of or at the beginning of the movie? They're like staring at each other, and then all of a sudden the dude's head explodes.
I don't think so. Not that I remember. Like I haven't watched it for probably 10 years. But as Edward Furlong in it, the guy from Terminator 2, the kid.
I know who. Weirdly
Oh,
enough, I know him as the guy from Pet Cemetery too, because I don't
Oh
really
yeah.
care about
I
Terminator.
I know what you're talking about now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because it's basically he gets a new PC game that is like you're a serial killer, and then he starts waking up, and everything he did in the game is coming true, and he's not sure what's happening and stuff. But it's pretty much like what we're talking about. It's like virtual reality, but then he's not sure if it's real or fake.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of seems ahead of its time.
Yeah, it's good. It's a great movie. I mean, as 12-year-old me watching it, I guess, but.
Oh, okay. Then you never want to watch it again. I hate when that happens. When I think to myself, "Man, this movie was awesome," and then I go back to it. I'm like, "What the hell was I thinking?"
Yeah, but I mean, it's scary. Like I'm gonna spoil one point of it, but he kind of looks in his freezer and he finds a dead human severed leg, and he doesn't know how it got there. And to me, that's always creeped me out.
You didn't get it at the deli?
Not the deli. Yeah.
No, yeah, you can't buy that at the deli, even if you tried.
All right, everybody. That's it for the podcast. we're gonna leave that on a happy note. What's the severed leg?
Go check out Brain Scan.
Yeah, go check out everything that we said. If you haven't, I mean, I don't know. Don't let being scared take you away from the survival horror genre. It's definitely something to try. It gives you a whole new experience in gaming, and I definitely would recommend all the games that we talked about. I liked every game that we pretty much all said. Well, at least the ones that I had played. So I definitely want to check out Zombie. So I might do that, especially after both of you tell me.
And Outlast. You have to check out Outlast. I'll plug that
Yeah,
for them. That's a free plug for Red Barrel Studios.
I want to play Outlast. That was on my list.
It's really, really good. And it's on. Oh, actually, no, it's not on PS3, but you could get it on PC until you upgrade.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Yep, and that's the end of our podcast for today. Happy Halloween, everybody.